So, you've heard of emotional intelligence, right, in the
Yep.
workplace. The EQ, IQ, of course, is super important in employees, adaptability, the ability to learn and grow and not just, come in smart, but can you acquire new skills? Those are all super important, but decency quotient is really how do you do right by others? That's what it's talking about.
Hello, hello.
Hey Heath, how are you?
Hey, dude. How you doing? Okay,
Good
man.
man.
I've got record on straight away. I'm pre-warning you. I've got recording on right now because some of
Sure.
these good parts of the conversation happen before I push record. And I lose it all. So I'm recording. How you been, dude? You good?
Doing great, doing great. Yeah, just having a quiet Saturday morning here, watching some footy. Yeah, gonna have a good day after, and excited to be here and talk with you.
Champion, man. Champion. Is it when you say at home? Is that Arizona or is that Texas? Where is it?
I'm in Washington D.C. based
Oh,
nowadays.
Washington. Washington. What did I get? DC might have been because I was looking at your LinkedIn back in the day. That started the career, right? Back in the day in Arizona.
Arizona, yeah, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
this is a long
Great.
time ago now.
We could
Oh,
finally get this, but yeah, Arizona. So missing the Mexican food out here, but they got good crabs, so it's a
okay.
good replacement in
There's a
that
lot
sense.
going on in Washington, D.C. right now, eh?
There is. It's interesting days for sure, but it's a great town to live in. Gets a lot of we'll say interesting rep and media outlets these days, as you mentioned. But great place to live. Yeah, and it's just getting really nice out too.
With the weather.
Consistently with the weather. Yeah.
Well, it's going to turn, your seasons are the same as ours. So you're going to be turning into winter soon with snow.
Yeah, yeah. We get a little bit out here. It's pretty tame though compared to places up in the Northeast, like you get Boston, where I got tons of friends up there. I'm sure you got connections there as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever traveled up there in like North New England and similar to Chicago. So some of those places in the Midwest, you kind of just hunker down. And obviously, me being from Arizona, I can't speak to it too much. I've only
Because it's
experienced it.
hot.
It's hot, yeah. So it's the opposite side of the spectrum, so to speak. But I don't mind the cold, so it'll get colder, but it doesn't get nearly as bad as some of those places as I was mentioning. So we just get
Okay. I,
little dumplings here and there.
I spent 3.5 weeks, 3.5 weeks, yeah, 3.5 weeks in Colorado one winter for a couple of mates. And
Sure.
man, I heard it before about, I don't know, myth of champagne powder. And
Yeah.
I've done a few seasons. I think in the first season I ever did snowboarding, I did 47 days on the mountain. And so that some people don't have 47 days in their life. We did it in one season. And and after that, about similar numbers for a few years. And so
Mm.
I really like snowboarding. And when someone said to me, yeah, America's got champagne powder, I go, yeah, what is it? What is it? And then you get there and go, it actually is. It's like, it's amazingly soft. And I got a video of my mate. He was on the balcony on the door, going into the apartment we rented, and he just fell backwards off it, for a story down onto the ground into the powder. It's
Yeah.
so nice.
Amazing, man. Yeah, Colorado's awesome too for that. And but I think that's what's great about America. It's so big. You got tons of opportunities, as you mentioned, to go and find that quote unquote champagne powder.
Yeah.
But I mean for yourself though, like
New
you're
Zealand.
from London, aren't you? Or where are
Oh,
you from
I'm
originally?
London now, but yeah, originally New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's good snowboarding skiing down there, isn't there? In like
Oh
certain
yeah,
parts.
they've got quite good at snowboarding. I think the X Games tour it starts in New Zealand now, and then it travels around the rest of the world. And so yeah, it sounds pretty
Awesome.
good, guys and girls. I was at the wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. It's how it's life,
Bugger.
isn't it? I
Oh,
know.
bugger. Okay, my man. Yes, this has been in the pipe for a long, long time, right? To get you and I or you on here. I think the last time we're going back 2023 or something.
Think something.
Oh shit.
To check the LinkedIn messages.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I don't know, I was traveling or you were traveling. I think I was traveling somewhere and it didn't connect. But I'm glad you got the time and thank you for reaching out again. I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll kick it off. How it works, right? We
Yeah.
usually I'll the background of who you are. might as well cover it now that you've been in transformation, and as I just alluded to at the beginning, you started in government in the Senate, and I think it was like 2013 or something in Arizona. So you have really long experience of exposure to government. And if we talk about the subject government transformation, if that's what we're going to discuss, and then you did some time in consulting, Big Four, EY, and then in transformation ever since 2013. So you've got a few years on the clock there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's been a ride the way you put it that way. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. And yeah, it's been in various capacities. I wouldn't say it's been all government, but really having that, I would say that expertise, that background in government, public sector for sure, but have worked in various sectors. And yeah, it's interesting to see the types of levels of transformation in and among businesses and government and organizations these days, particularly with AI.
Oh, yeah, AI. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. There's the old. It's so funny that even the people that harp on about it so much, about technology, Gartner being one of them, and they themselves have their own Gartner hype curve. It's like, well, if the guys that publish so much research around technology, and they themselves have a graph, some visualization to represent what happens with general trends. You used to have the normal distribution, the early adopters, the laggards, sit through the 95% saturation rate. It's like, so technology goes through the same kind of thing. I can't remember the terms, but there was the trough of despair, where reality kicks in and the hype dies down, and AI is one time we were talking data lake, and then now it's taking its data house, full house. So at the moment, the new kid on the block is AI, Gen AI, and then it's going to be agentic AI. Well, that's probably more so here now. And then the next is something else again. Yeah, and again. Yeah, so it's a cycle, right? Okay, so we'll get into that. So we usually cover 3 points. One of them, the first is, and from your perspective, if we're going to, your niche, where you cover the most, or most comfortable, or most liked. From your perspective, what is the industry doing right or wrong right now? What are they learning? Any major, like I see it a lot, and even with the last guest, Larry Mandelberg was talking about, from his perspective, he sees that, I will talk about, and the research will say the failure rate in transformation programs is at least 70, sometimes higher. And he'll say actually 85% of most transformations fail on their core objective. I said, that's very specific. And he said, the core objective, why they started in the first place, 85% of them don't hit it. They achieve benefits and other things, but the number one reason they got the winner to do this transformation never got achieved. So from your perspective, what are they doing right, the wrong, lessons learned, repeated mistakes? Second one is, when you go into your clients, now done it 20, 30 years, then is there a particular approach you follow? So if there is, could you step us through it? What does it look like? And thirdly, now having done this for 20 odd years, to a couple of decades, if you could do it all again, what would you do differently? Which is really the takeaways. It's like, you know what? I would go into big projects, and my colleagues as business architects and business transformation are banging around with the business canvas model. And I'm going, you're doing a transformation, and that's a useful tool, probably where you don't know your business model to start with, or there's lack of consensus, or you're a startup is be fantastic, get everyone on the same page. But the right tool for the right job. And so is there any aha moments that you go, look, definitely use that as a go-to, and I would probably avoid that. It's it's a red herring, architecture, looks good, doesn't do anything.
Yeah, happy to speak to all that. And I think definitely have some interesting insights I can share just in various experiences. But going back to what you were talking about in terms of like that, the trough of despair, as you put it, just to quickly tie in, because I think the term you were maybe looking for was like innovation, the innovation curve.
Yes,
business where you're kind of, like you said, it's a normal distribution. Where are we right now in that sort of like agentic AI, generative AI innovation curve in the broader markets, impacting various industries. So it is something that in terms of transformation, right? Like, folks who are in transformation, what does that look like? How do we measure where we are in the innovation curve, and how can we use that to our advantage when we're performing transformation activities for different clients or customers or
Yes.
businesses. It's something to start thinking about and kind of get ahead of the game here as things really pick up with the curve of innovation. So just to touch upon
I think we'll
backtracking.
come back to that's a great point. That's a great point there. The
Mhm.
I'm helping a client right now, and you probably get this yourself. You know, you get called in
Mhm.
because they want external consultancy. They want someone who's not them to give them advice, to tell them, you know, point out probably might be political internally that they now can't make a decision or don't want to make a decision. They can blame a third party. So they bring
Mhm.
you in for third party, independent, external advice. And you give that advice to them and they don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Right.
It's like,
Or they chuck it out the window. It goes in
yeah,
one ear and goes out the
yeah. It's
other.
like you called in help because you needed it. Now you've been shown something that will help, but you don't want to accept it. Did you want help in the first place?
Right.
So if you're quite happy to keep doing your repeated mistakes, so I won't drop any names right now, but I'm
Sure,
helping a
sure.
client right now, and their target operating models, which some people just think that's about headcount. No, it's more than headcount is one part of it. You know, structure, governance, reporting. You know, it's how you're going to take in data or information or customers and finance, and then through your sausage factory, produce an output, sell it for value, and get repeat business. So they don't have a governance body to sign off on the target operating models. So the what we're actually signing off on is, do we get funding for the project? It's like, no, we've already got funding for the project. The project funding has been given to us in order to do the project. If you want to prove anything about finance, is what's the ongoing cost of this operating model that you're going to improve after the project is finished. And I tell you what, to have no governance about that, the staff have worked out how they can manipulate these meetings to get
Sure.
whatever they want. And so I call it out and I say, hey, look, you got to put this governance body in place because you've got people here that are getting away with literally murder. Not literally, but they are asking for things that are not practical and able to be implemented. But we are supposedly signing them off. There's going to be a train crash either while I'm here or after I leave, and you're going to have to deal with it later, or you deal with it now. They don't want to hear it. Like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Well, and what I'm hearing from that example is the importance of, kind of selling your pitch. And I think in transformation initiatives in particular in my experience in government, it's a little more wonky and a little more by the book, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think, and maybe in private sector ways that you go about business transformation activities when you're consulting with different clients, whether it be small business and medium enterprise, or larger enterprise, Fortune 500. Oftentimes you can have a little more leeway in terms of how you go about some of those activities, and so it doesn't necessarily take as much of that sell side.
yeah.
Almost like you're doing it kind of like if you're thinking deal flow, transaction strategy. It's a similar concept, but you're doing it from a transformation side and trying to pitch that to the client because, to your point, the resistance to change, the hesitancy to change, that's a huge barrier to entry for a lot of folks who are trying to get into these sort of spaces of transformation for clients.
Mm,
So that's just to say, I think, what I'm hearing from you, and I have experiences as well, and happy to chat about some of those experiences in a second to your
yeah,
points about some of the questions. But that way you sort of eloquate to the customer, like this need for transformation needs to be holistic. It doesn't need to be looked at from one point of view. Needs to be looked at from a holistic target operating model,
mm,
and it needs to be looked at past, present, and future.
yes.
Um, how do we tie this all together? And that goes back to what I was mentioning about the innovation curve and some of these new technologies that companies need to reconcile with, even with the even with smaller natures type companies and medium enterprises.
Yeah, do you think
Great
then
challenge.
with the innovation curve, sorry to cut you off there, do you think the
Sure.
innovation curve is the technology innovation curve is advanced and the transformation innovation curve is a bit behind? And so
Mhm.
they like so the client I'm helping right now, they know they need to change, however they're reluctant to change. And then the new technology comes in and go, oh, we better adopt this new technology. We go, but their processes to adopt change is so far behind. I think what they're going to do is rush it. They're trying to rush things through the transformation process, so now they can play catch up. And in doing that rushing, they're gonna. When I say mistakes, like the mistakes I'm seeing now is the governance is gone, and they are now letting people play gunshot when oh yeah we want go
Say it's
for
like
it.
running around with like a chickens with their heads cut off, basically
Yeah,
trying to figure out what to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
confusing busyness with being productive.
I like that. Write that down. But no,
Oh,
that's a fantastic point, and I think
yeah,
the governance aspect is huge. And I think something that's overlooked a lot of times in transformation type activities. So I guess to kind of go into, some of your questions, and kind of tie this governance
yeah,
point into some of those examples that I've seen in the past. So, talking about right, wrong, right? Like I think that was one of your
yep,
points.
yep,
Like what
yep,
what what have I seen that's gone right? Where's the thing that's gone
yeah,
wrong? Particularly in my experiences in government consulting and government transformation type projects and public sector type projects, whether it be with nonprofits, think tanks, where you're producing research, or whether, again, in a consultative fashion, with the various companies I've worked for, or on an independent level. The the biggest thing that I think that has been a hindrance to success has been adoption, as you mentioned. Adoption of new processes, new methods, new standard operating procedures, new guidelines, new playbooks, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
It's getting buy-in from the broader customer base, the broader population, if you will, that
yep.
is going to be impacted by whatever sorts of transformation activities you're trying to pitch, to have changed or done.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's ubiquitous. I'm curious to hear your points, and your
yeah,
experiences with that. If you
yeah. I
see,
think
yeah, I mean, you kind of
uh,
mentioned it with the governance, but it can be other aspects as
yeah,
well.
no, I fully agree there. And you summed it up in one word, and it's perfect. There's adoption. Is that
Mhm.
I'm writing notes here because you're going to drop some gold. I know because we've had this conversation. Conversations like
Right.
this through LinkedIn, and I might even been email over the years. So yeah, definitely adoption has been a struggle, even though, and it's really good to see. Like we've had some change managers on here recently, and I've seen over the last probably 10 years now that change manager has been almost a staple part of a core team. When a project gets set up, a change manager or business change person is assigned to it. If you're lucky, you get assigned a full person as opposed to half a person who dips in every now and then, doesn't really understand the context and the impacts. But if you're
Right.
lucky, you got a full one. So I see the good change there of business change. People are getting involved and involved early in the project, as opposed to after design and now we go into implementation. So someone's running around. Oh, we've got to do some comms. Or we've got to do what's the needs analysis and the training gaps. And oh, we've got to drill. It's like whoa, 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 whoa. You should have
Yeah.
guys like architects should have been brought into the beginning. So
Right.
yeah, that adoption part is I see, even though the change manager person is early and coming in early in the projects, I think culturally with the organization, that whole culture needs to understand of we live in an environment where the world changes relatively quickly. And maybe it's a part of the onboarding induction when people start saying, this is where we're going today. And just be prepared though, we might not be going that way in a year's time, or maybe two, or maybe a month. So don't get fixated because I see a lot of people that, oh, it's always, this is how we've done things around here.
Mhm.
And that's how the way they want to always do things around here. It's like, well, you know what, how that's going to end, right?
Yeah, same old. No, you're absolutely right. And I can't really speak to specifics, obviously, about some of the projects I've worked on, but I can give more of just like a general example of kind of what I've seen in the past is,
Yep.
we spend in consulting, you've seen this, you spend maybe 2 years on a transformation type project, whether say it's an enterprise transformation type project that is migrating data, or you're integrating two different systems and unifying their data, and you're trying to get people to act upon data, basically,
Mm,
or act upon information. I think that's a way to kind of frame it as a
yeah.
leader in your head
Yep.
is, it's a decision point for your end user, your customer base. So how do you make that decision point the most palatable to them? And I think if you can look at it as an act of like, okay, my end user is going to want to see this benefit them in some way. So put yourself in their shoes. Uh,
Empathy.
empathy. Yeah, absolutely. Which managers sometimes, let's be honest, we sometimes you get into the day-to-days, the day-to-day throes of things. Everyone's got personal lives. That
Yeah.
empathy sometimes go by the wayside, and I think
Yes.
that really lets down a lot of projects. If you're a project manager, if you're a program manager, if you're a partner, it doesn't matter what level of leader. I think that you got to have that empathy in your day-to-day, and it can be hard to show up on the
Yes.
day-to-day and have that empathy.
Yep.
But definitely, transformation type projects, like getting people on board that's 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 the biggest thing.
Yes.
Whether it's right or wrong is indifferent. Like that is what needs to happen. And it should start. And I'm curious to hear your experience on this. In my opinion, it works best when it starts at the middle. So you got those middle level managers that are really working change management activities, managing up, but then also managing, obviously managing down, managing juniors or whatnot, but
Yep.
managing it across and having some of those opportunities to really um, drive some of those change activities themselves. It can't be just coming and change. I should say, when I say it, I'm talking about effective change management and business transformation activities that want to be fully executed upon and seen to be successful, quote unquote, over a course of time. They should not be pushed from the top. You got
Yes.
to have
Yes.
holistic buy-in and holistic communications and transformation. And I think you kind of talked about that with that target operating model where you said your client was a little bit reticent maybe to to kind of look at that whole picture. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I do think
Holistic.
that the middle
Yeah.
management is super important.
Okay, so I just want to play the back to you. I agree. The middle management play a role. Like I talk about the three L's, right? The layers, language, and levels. In every organization's got the layers, the strategic, ops, and implementation, and they all speak a different language.
Mhm.
C-suite speak about big picture market share, top line revenue, operations. They talk about the things that are of interest to them. If it's HR, they're talking about days to recruit and the number of days it takes to get an offer letter out after they've had all the
Sure.
interviews and shortlists and days off and all that stuff. That's very operational. And then down the level of detail down in implementation of projects and even technology, the level of detail is super detailed. And so their language is completely different. So when I talk about transformation, it's like you've got to, as an architect, and I steer away from calling ourselves business, or myself and my peers business architects, because the
Yeah.
business architect, unfortunately, have got a bad name of turning up one day for a one meeting with the whole team or as many people they can get, and they document whatever is said, and then they disappear for 4, 5, 6 months, and they turn up on
Yeah.
one day and they go, ta-da! There's your target operating model, and the business is going, did you get that from that one meeting that we had? And they're looking at the amount of work it's taken and how long it's taken. And they go, well, they're looking at each other. The meeting finishes and they walk out and they say, you know what? I don't understand anything they said. And then
Yeah.
they'll go, oh, look, they were here for another couple of months. Let's just agree. And when the bugger off, we'll just go back to how it was before. And that's how the projects all, mostly run. It's like the consultants come in, speak another language, they bamboozle the business with the jargon, and they don't understand. The business doesn't want to look silly, so they say, yeah, yeah, and they walk out and they go, don't know, wait for them to leave, and we'll go how it was before. It's like
Mhm.
so the language part is not understanding that the language they speak. I did a big project at one of the big ones on the government, and
Mhm.
the consultants on the project came up with a new language for the business, and the business is going, wait, you've called it service delivery, but we call it case management. So, and
Yeah.
then something else was called case management, and so the guy, what are you talking? So it's like they're not even listening. They're not in. So that was like,
Well,
yeah,
and
and
there you go. That's something that's wrong right there. To speak about what's wrong, right? Talk
yeah,
about those two dichotomies of your question, right? Talking about what's good. You just listed off two things right there that are perhaps, I mean, in my opinion, probably arguably in others as well, the two most common killers of successful transformation type projects,
Yeah.
especially if you're coming in as a consultant, is one, over complicating things.
Mm. Oh,
Like you said, the folk, or excuse me, the consultants who came in and created an entire new language. Like, was that
yeah.
necessary,
Mm.
to really achieve the end state of what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Um, and then two, uh, uh, the high and buy is what I like to call it, where you come in, like you said, you may have initial meetings with them, get all the data you need, come up with, 30, 60, 90-day sort of transformation type plan,
Yeah.
pitch it to them, bill your hours to them, and then go and bugger off, as you guys like to say down under. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you show up later and check in and see how things are, and you realize, to your point, well, they've gone to, hell in a handbasket because you just threw them a book and said, okay, here,
Yeah.
read this. It's like trying to learn a new language without Duolingo or something, and
Yeah.
no internet, no nothing. And so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely think it can be, I think it depends, because sometimes small companies, they do like that. They just want the information because they
Mm.
can act a little quick, a little more agile.
Yeah.
But the bigger company, in particular government too, like I'm sure you see this, there's process with everything. And so
Mm.
if there's no process, there's no gain, there's no movement. Leadership tends to get frustrated easily. So, um, uh, those are two things right off the back that I've seen. And
Yeah, the overcomplicated and
overcomplicated.
the
Yeah,
high and the
yeah.
buy. I like that. I'm going to quote you on that one. The high and buy.
Buy and buy. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I
And
I
again, I don't think it's bad all the time, because there's successful consulting firms that do that. The
mm,
McKinsey model for a long time, and everyone knows this. I can say it because it's public knowledge. Like,
yeah.
that's what they do, is they go in
Yeah.
there, they may be a little bit different now. I know a lot of the top consulting firms, they have venture studios now. They have, my God, every aspect of a business you can think of are in a lot of these top consulting firms now, in terms of
Yeah.
like internal creators, transformation type stuff that they pitch to clients. But traditionally those consulting firms were like buy and buy. You go in, you get the data, you produce a deck, and you
Yeah.
see it, give it to them, bill. And so it has its place. I do think it's beneficial, but it's definitely, I think, in the new age of how we're seeing generative AI and agentic AI replace a lot of those skills for companies. That
Mm,
new model for transformation, if you are, say, a transformation type consultant and you want to make your career in this, or you're already in the career in this like yourself, it's like, how do we, and myself, it's like, how do we adapt as professionals with this new stuff and kind of integrate it into our day-to-day work?
yeah.
Um, I don't know if that resonates with you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see
Try.
the yeah, I see with the big four and that I don't know if it's genre, but yeah, their business model that model is changing. I think forced change. I think it's a good change. I think prior to that would have been part of what I call marketecture. That interesting. The business architects get accused of producing the reams and reams of decks of beautiful presentations, and I call that marketecture. It's interesting but not very useful. It's like that there actually a guy that we partnered together on something, and he said to me, he's told me that term architecture, and I said, that's a great term. Did you just make that up? And he goes, no, no. I said, no, man, that's amazing. That's like, he goes, look it up, and there's a whole page dedicated on Wikipedia, and it is basically it's documentation designed and the real for in the technology space just for the purposes of marketing, and mostly marketing to decision makers of all, and then the I think the real use comes out, or the unfiltered use is actually it's marketing to the decision makers on all the work that they're going to do but don't need to do, but it's very convincing. And so, this is what when I see when I'm going into and board presentations and
Yeah,
stuff has
yeah.
been presented to me, and I'm going, half that stuff's not needed, right? Like, but it looks impressive. I've got to give you that. Like it's a thing of art.
No, hey, anyone can start. They say anyone can start a business these days with AI, right? That's that's
Yeah,
what that's
yeah,
what the
yeah,
whole stick is. But you're right.
yeah.
It makes it super competitive because of that. Because it is so easy to start a business, and
Mm,
so there's a lot more competition for um folks who are and you see with the entry level workers coming out of university right
Yeah.
now, and I don't know if you guys are seeing this in maybe your parts of the world, but you've worked. I know you said you were in London,
Yeah.
base and whatnot, but over here in the States, a lot of recent graduates are having difficulty getting jobs because AI is replacing a lot of them.
Hmm.
And I think for us, it's the same situation. It's like even though we're well established in our careers, a lot of these kids, I shouldn't call them kids, these young
Yeah.
professionals,
Yep.
they're going to say, okay, well, why would I go work for X, Y, and Z super Fortune 500 company when I can just go and go on the Perplexity, create a cool code, so
App. Yeah.
whatever kind of app
Yeah.
and start my company and say it's business transformation using agentic AI. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, but that puts us out
Yeah.
of work. So it's just a quite interesting dynamic because we're gonna have to learn how to use this. Although when I say this, I'm talking AI more broadly, more ubiquitously, but
Yeah.
it does create that tension of like, well, it's replacing jobs in all sectors, all types of people like ourselves, we're white collar workers really. Um,
Oh, for sure.
but yeah, but it's like, what is, I mean, I may have to go, learn how to weld or something, like
Yeah.
just as a backup plan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For sure.
but
That
yeah,
I think, yeah, there is. I think with the consulting market is that the there's always going to be an element of relationships that are needed or required with clients, and I think probably the bigger you go, there's the higher the need for the relationship element of it. But for the more as the strategy, there's until you can fully automate the implementation of the strategy, I think there's always going to be a role there. But the consulting role is not just going to be the advice anymore. I think there's some form of tool or some capability enablement that you're going to offer that, unless the government themselves are going to be fully automated with no people, then yeah, which
hopefully that doesn't happen.
I think as much as vendors would like that to happen. I don't see that happening. Even like my interest, I think peaked. I was always interested in some agentic AI tools
Sure.
before COVID, and what happened during COVID is that they got like pushed to the forefront. And market values, I won't name a couple of the names, but the valuations, US listed,
Massive.
through the
Yeah.
roof, right? Literally through the roof. But now the hype, the Gartner hype curve, has died down, and everyone looked at it and go, you know what?
Yeah.
Was that really the value that we thought? Was it really there from the beginning, or we were just caught up in the hype?
Mhm.
And it's like at the moment, everyone is caught up in the hype,
Mhm.
and it's like, so I'll give you an example with the client I'm working with right now. They've got Copilot installed, and as Microsoft has got it installed everywhere. And so
Mhm.
you can ask a question and it will search everything, SharePoint to your emails. But when it comes back for answers, it'll source the actual documents you're working in. So, well, no, you exclude the ones I'm working in because that is where I'm capturing the analysis, not where you're saying that's the source because I'm making it up. I'm literally making it up from what I'm finding. And
Right.
so it's like, you know what? And then it produces an output, and I share it with my colleagues, and I go, this is how you know from the quality, even though you prompt it really well, the quality of that output, you'll know that the humans will never be
Yeah.
replaced.
Yeah.
Because it's like you look at that and you go, it's missing so much context. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know what you could do or say to make that super smart, unless you make a super duper system prompt or just a prompt. You go time it took me to write that prompt, I could have written the answer.
Right, right. It is a catch 22, you're right. And that's a very valid point. I think one that um definitely has merit in terms of, it's like the relationships that you mentioned, the relationships or the human relationships, that interaction is always going to be at the center of client type projects, interaction type projects in our field, but also in every type of field. I mean, say you're, in conservation, you're working for the U.S. Forest Service, and in 10 years, you're working, or not 10 years, let's say your agency, and this is happening more broadly actually in terms of government transformation, which I realize we haven't talked a lot about it, even though that
Yeah,
was the topic.
yeah, no, no, yeah.
Government
It's all good.
transformation,
Yeah,
you're seeing this a lot, which is a good example. Actually, I'll kind of pivot into this. You're seeing this a lot actually more broadly in the U.S. government with smaller type agencies that are implementing different sorts of emerging and new technologies to really help drive efficiency and productivity with labor and but also cost and resources. And you know, I said the U.S. Forest Service just off the cuff of my head, but I don't know specifically if they are have sort of enterprise transformation stuff. So just saying that out
yeah,
there
yeah.
as a moniker, but you know, I'm sure them and other agencies, and I know this for a fact because I've seen it. Can't speak to some of them, but agencies are utilizing new technologies to, again, improve productivity. And some of those are agentic in nature, agentic AI. And so it does, again, limit the extent, I think, of people like ourselves who are coming in and trying to work in those types of government transformation. But on the other hand, there is going to always be that need for the human side, the human
Mm,
element of, because again, it's that adoption in the innovation curve. Once you get to a certain point in the innovation curve, if you don't have that adoption level, it's almost like, what's the point of doing this? You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like to your point, it's you're producing things like ChatGPT and all these different, like DeepSeek is super popular. I haven't used it myself, but I've heard it's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
Grok, all these different technologies. Grok's great though, I have to say.
Yeah.
But to the end state of what the goal is it always going to be the right answer? Probably not.
Mm,
Probably not. Even when we have generative or excuse me, artificial general intelligence, not generative AI, but the stuff you see in Terminator, those kind of things.
yeah.
Hopefully they're not evil, but
Yeah.
we have that level of intelligence. It is going to take, I think, that human element still. And the government transformation here, it is, I think, picking up pace, which is great to see. There's tons of VC investment right now. There's tons of private equity investment right now into uh, portfolio companies who contract with the U.S. government, but also this is happening globally, not just with the
Yeah,
U.S.
yeah,
government.
yeah.
You see it with European countries right now after the situation with, well, the last couple of years with Russia, what's happening there. So defense spending is really picking up there. But then also down under, man, like Australia, I think they just purchased they just got a contract with the U.S. government for more submarine technologies for the Royal Navy down there, and I know New Zealand's part and Australian part of the Five Eyes. So there's lots of engagement in government transformation, and I think that's really needed right now to kind of keep pace with some of the adversarial threats that we
Mm.
see in different, we'll say, geopolitical actors. China, if you want to name it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like let's be honest in terms of some of those provocative activities that we've seen, and not only in the physical space but in the non-physical space. So cyberspace,
Yeah, yeah.
the non-kinetic, and so the government transformation. I think because of these threat types that are a little more asymmetrical than what the U.S. government, and I'm just speaking to U.S. government specifically, but again, this is happening globally to what the U.S. government has seen in the past, which is those symmetric types of wars
Mm.
and those symmetric types of environments, not just wars, because government transformation, as I mentioned, is happening with all different types of agencies, not just like DoD, but my background is in national security, so I can speak a little bit more to that. But that innovation curve with that pace of adoption is really important for government transformation, though, even though it is
Yes.
happening, because there's still that, at least in my experience, we still see a lot of reticency to change. And
Mm.
I think government is a bit probably worse than other sectors in that, just for various reasons.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name one, but it makes it definitely more challenging, I think, to really effectively work these government transformation type projects. But they are happening, and
Yeah, yeah.
sure
So
you're
I
seeing.
so I want to talk a couple of things, talk about DeepSeek
Yeah,
and
sure.
other LLMs there. But to your point, if the environment and market and competitors and vendors and threats are increasing, and if government is part of either provide some regulation or legislation to protect consumers and others, then they also too would need to keep up. And so back to our earlier point about the transformation innovation curve, it's like, well, if we're talking government here, like they are at the beginning, well, they're not peaking up. They're like, moments, and I think that, as you're alluding to, is the smaller agencies, which I've seen, although it might be actually opposite. I've done smaller, so we've got in the UK, it's like national government and then local government, effectively. And so you got so major cities, so everything in the London, and then or Greater London, and then other smaller cities. And so I've done a project recently in Manchester, and that's local government. And the way they need to go for funding and budget approvals and there versus down here central, completely different. But yeah, so I think that the governments themselves, yes, definitely. I think if we go to that pro to con, the best, what's working, not working. I generally would think the smaller the agency, the more nimble, and then you should be able to react quicker, adopt quicker, try new things. What didn't work? Okay, let's kill that. Let's carry on with that. Although don't be crazy. Like I did a client work with an insurance company, and their whole strategy was fail fast. And I go, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, we've got to try. I said, but do you understand? And they had like a couple of $100 million, even like, it would have been $1 billion worth of projects that have failed projects, and they learnt nothing from it. They just want to fail fast. And I go, you guys say the words fail fast so fast off your tongue, you don't even think about why you're doing the project in the first place. You just want to try everything. I'll tell you, the people who's benefiting from that is the people who's telling you to do that. They're the only ones that have been here. This is the project that had no vision but 120 OKRs.
I'll tell you, the ones who aren't benefiting is their investors. Whoever is losing money on that, if it's the company themselves, I'll tell you what, that's a lot of money, man. And that's an interesting point. For government agencies too. That's very bizarre. I've never usually they're so cautious about doing anything.
Okay, so on that point there about where the model was going to, the consulting model, when you talk about DeepSeek there, I think that the add value that consultants will have is they will shortcut. It's going like, I think the comparison is DeepSeek versus ChatGPT. And DeepSeek came out of almost last cab off the rank, but they came out with an open source version that can be hosted locally. And it's like, how can you do that? How can you have such as powerful as ChatGPT, and arguably then it was like equal, if you could have it that powerful, but you didn't have the processing needs of what ChatGPT did, because they built it smarter, right? Only to use the little amount of resources that it needed. And so the same with, I see other consultants say, I've got a list here of 5,000 prompts for you.
Yeah.
Jesus, man, cut that down. Give me 5 or 6, not 1,000. Like, so it's like the value that the consultants will bring is like, you can get ChatGPT or DeepSeek to search as many databases and knowledge bases that you like, but let's be smart about this. And that's
And I think just to talk about what has worked well for me and what is kind of fallen by the wayside. That's a good way just to tag on what you're saying. I think it goes back to what we were talking about overcomplicating things. Like work smarter, not harder. My old American football coach drilled that into me when I was 12 years old, when we were in 100-degree heat. I'll never forget it. Or doing 2-a-days back in the day, and I'll never forget it. And it applies. It's a lesson that applies to everything. And I think in business sometimes we do tend to overcomplicate things for various reasons. Again, I think it's human nature. Sometimes you could be a person wanting to impress your boss, so you write a 60-page standard operating procedure when it could be done in 10. Things like that. So definitely that human interaction will stay, but that 100% agree with you. What has been successful for me is just trying to simplify it as much as you can and make things super easy for people to understand. and also constant communication. I think in change management, that is
Mm.
you can never over communicate when you're doing change management activities, in particular with uh, agencies that are bigger, but also with agencies that are siloed, which are oftentimes bigger companies, but can also be smaller companies. But in bigger companies, those silos will really, and personality types, but those silos tend to be roadblockers.
Yeah.
Not you see if you've seen that.
Yeah, I agree with you there, definitely. Yeah,
But
the
I think those are huge things to consider, what goes right and wrong, and so
yep. Okay, so have we covered then the the initial what's the industry doing right, doing wrong?
yeah,
Okay, so we got they're doing right is they well should be doing right is don't overcomplicate it. Your last 2 points there was about working smarter, not harder, simplify the complexity, constant communication, um, and don't invent, don't overcomplicate it. And the high and buy, I quite like that. There,
yeah,
that's the old model, right? Is that the high and buy, but it could be suitable. It could be suitable for that client, and that would be,
yep,
as my point I said about the 3 L's: the understanding who you're talking to, what level, what
yeah.
language they are, what level of detail they want. Okay, all
I,
right,
I would
now,
say also one thing
yep,
as well to add, and I do like the three L's. I'll have to follow up with you on that, but I would say also empowerment, kind of what we were talking about with those middle managers. If
yes,
you're empowering people to hold themselves accountable to change, that's usually projects will be successful with that. If people really, and that helps them buy in too, because they're like, hey, I got more leadership responsibilities at work today, honey. Woohoo. But really what they're doing is help drive change.
yeah,
But they just don't think of it like that.
yeah. So having
Well, I
some,
shouldn't say big, yeah, I shouldn't say ubiquitously all people, but a lot of people wouldn't think of it that way. Oh,
yeah, having some skin in the game.
yep.
So they get to enjoy the fruits of the success, but also they'd feel the disappointment, if that's the word, of not
Yeah.
achieving the intended outcomes. All right, now the second part two. The and now your 20 odd years, over 2 decades experience doing transformation. Is there a particular method you follow, approach, those first steps? You did say the 30, 90, 60, 90 days. When you do a
Mhm.
transformation, you're going, okay, this is the steps or process that we follow. Like for me, I wrote it in a book after being so disappointed about what I saw many years
Yeah.
going in, the same old problems, going, Jesus, guys, there's a process to this, and I don't know why, but you seem to be starting at the end of the process. Or I'd be called in and the sponsor saying, Heath, I agree with your method, but I want you to start at number 5, like 6 steps. Start at number 5. You want me to start at design? I said, yeah. I said, wait, we've not agreed the vision at the beginning. We're not understood the current state or the governance, and then step 2 governance and current state. What's wrong? What's the structure? What's the pain points? We haven't even discussed any of that. And you want me to go straight to
Mhm.
design? He goes, Heath, there's 53 locations. They do this business 53 different ways. It will take you forever to understand the current state. And I said, look, all we need to do is understand. We go around to a couple of people, your core leaders, and we say, look, give me
Yeah.
the best practice, and from that will be our baseline. And as simple as that. For some, it's going to be aspirational, some it's going to be BAU. And said that's our
Sure.
baseline. And that's our starting point. At the moment, and I got called in, and they already had a vendor, or already
Mhm.
just started the project, but they had a vendor in there who they already pre-selected to do the design, the systems design, and they're having requirements workshops, and the business are arguing in front of the vendor about all the problems they've got, and they can't agree on one of them. They go, well, it doesn't work this way where we are. It doesn't work that way where we are. No, we don't do it this way, and they get nowhere. And I said the
Yeah.
reason why this, and it was they already did this project for a year and a half. They killed it, and they started again. And then so the sponsor says to me, Heath, I just want you to do it number 5. And I said, if you give me 20 minutes, I'm going to go get that presentation from the last guys, because that's exactly the same one. They do it
Mhm.
exactly. I do it exactly the same way. It's going to get exactly the same result. He goes, no, 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 no. I said, well, you want me to do exactly as the last guys did. What do you think is going to change?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No, agreed. It's man, I don't know who that client is. He sounds fun. But
oh,
no naming names, but
yeah,
definitely been there.
yeah.
I think the process thing is interesting. Because having worked for big consulting firms, everyone pushes And I'm sure you saw this too. And the the HOBA method, I've read into it and it's awesome. And I've incorporated aspects of it into my work as well.
Oh,
But I
thank you.
think the traditional methods, get pushed on you. What is it like I'm not sure if I'm saying that
Yeah,
right.
yeah, 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 yeah. The change
You
management.
got
Yeah.
yep, change management. You have the Profar, I think is the other one. Like there's various frameworks, methodologies you can use for change management that are all accredited and they're all great. I'm not going to say that one's
Yep.
better than another. I think they all work for various methods and
Mm,
various circumstances. And so that's why, in terms of process for myself, I like to incorporate aspects of various, let's call them frameworks or methods,
yep.
dependence on the client that I'm working with. I don't like to pigeonhole clients into a certain solution type. There's consulting firms that do this. Doesn't make it right or wrong. I don't think it usually is to the benefit of the client. That's just my own personal opinion because it is what it sounds like. You're pigeonholing them into a product design that may not be beneficial for them in the longer term. It may be
Mm,
good for 30, 60, 90 days turnaround of a situation, from a like let's say you're presenting a kind of a change plan for a 90-day timeline, you can produce something like that. But
yep.
with this sort of pigeonhole, let's say framework that you'd be pitching to them or selling to them from a process perspective. But is that to is that to their best benefit at the end of the day? So I try to look at it and some consultants, they're just there for the money. They're just billing clients and no judgment. Look, I understand. I've been there to be
Yep.
quite honest,
Yeah.
and it's part of the game. It really
Mm,
is. But I think when you take a little more skin in the game, as kind of talked about, and you're finding that empathy with the clients with their day-to-day challenges, and you're really wanting to set them up for success. And a lot of it does go back to that relationship building. If you enjoy working with your client, then you're going to want to help them out. You're going to want to do good by them.
yeah.
And I've worked with great clients, and I'm like, man, I would die on a hill for you. I like to help you as much as I can with the resources that I have and to the
Mm,
extent I can. And then I've worked with clients where it's like, okay, I just got to get this project done, and I'll
yeah.
never talk talking to you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's two sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But
I
I
think.
don't I don't typically like pigeonholing. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think when you said for the beginning there, the two parts here, that you said frameworks, and I people don't quite have probably not worked it out, and I actually put it in the book, and I said that HOBA is a framework of frameworks.
Mhm.
It
I
covers
like
the process, and there's the steps 1 to 6. It's conceptual, where it talks
that.
about the 5 Ws 1 H, and then the context framework is now the building blocks and blueprints. I said so. It's not there's like it's like you're saying is, and I get caught in as you and I do and other consultants, as I will say, and they'll ask me, so Heath, how are we going to do this? I said, well, they got all the tools and techniques, or someone's found I've written a book, and they go, oh, are you going to come in here use your book? I said, yeah, 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 yeah. See, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this book. I'm going to bang you over the head with it until you're blue in the face. And they go,
Yeah,
"Oh,
very
really?"
interesting.
And like excitingly, and I go, "No." I said, "If anyone does that, you got to run for the hills." That what that means is they haven't understood the context. And they're gonna, to your point about different
Yeah,
frameworks,
yeah.
is apply it 2 ways: appropriately and proportionately for the context. And it
I
might
like
be that that book is not even appropriate or for this project, so we wouldn't use it. As you were saying, is like and that what I think is that is the real skill of the business transformation professional, is that they can come in and go like the two salesmen. I use this one with my good friend of mine to paint an example. There's two salesmen from America go to Africa, as an example. They could go to anywhere, Finland. And they get off the plane, and the first salesman gets off the plane, and he looks at everyone running around. They've got no shoes on. And he goes, "Oh, great, massive opportunity." Goes back to America, starts making the shoes. And then the second one goes over, gets off the plane, and there's no, no business here. And they go, "Why not?" And he says, "Well, no one wears any shoes." And so it's like, so they saw the same
Yeah.
situation, but they interpreted it differently. It's
Yeah,
like,
you're gonna create the market.
yeah,
It's like yeah,
uh,
it's and yeah, that's good. I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that. Maybe the uh might use different. might not use shoes, might use something else. I'll have to change it up a
Yeah,
bit, but
yeah.
make my
You're welcome to it. Yeah, please. Yeah, I borrowed that from.
put it in a deck somewhere. Put it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
put
yeah. But it is that's the skill of the transformation
yeah,
professional is to understand the context, pull out from their tool set, the range that they've got, and they go, yeah, okay, we're going to use this one to the full degree, or this one, no, this one's not appropriate. Okay, as
Mhm.
opposed to here we go. The thing that annoys me when I go into, like you mentioned some names there, like the ones that get banged around when I'm in there is either TOGAF, which I'm certified, and a few other ones, and there's like
Yeah,
the my colleagues are banging around about TOGAF, and I'm going, TOGAF, first of all, although that it's called a enterprise architecture framework, enterprise is made up of two things, even by TOGAF's definition, business
sure.
architecture and technology architecture. But what you seem to be talking about is only technology, but you're saying you're dealing in enterprise architecture. So where's the business part then? No one's talking about the business part. I said, who do you think
Yeah,
is going to use the technology that you're implementing?
yeah,
Ghosts? Like, the business that you seem to be not even talking about or to.
yeah, yeah. And it goes back again, the adoption, and it comes down to leadership. It comes down to people wanting to change, and sometimes it's just that is the killer of transformation projects. That is the killer of any, in my
Yeah,
experience, and probably your experience of
yeah,
any transformation type projects. But
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
think,
and I think just a one
yeah,
quick last point. I made a note about what you were saying about that method. What did you call it? The one you said
TOGAF.
TOGAF. I also
Yeah,
looked
so
at
it stands for the Open Group Architecture Framework.
TOGAF.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm not. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah,
But
the Open Group is a consortium, and it's strange. It's not. Well, I actually wrote it in the book. Is that they on their website themselves? They say they are a systems and technology standards company. So
mhm,
just that on its own is that systems and standards, not business or business transformation, but actual technology. And so
mhm,
they quoted many places. It's like the leading enterprise architecture framework, but only focuses on they have a token process and there's a token place there for business architecture in the beginning. And I'll tell you how much attention they pay to it. It's like this. Like I know it's
wow.
there, it needs to be there, but with this, with this,
Yeah,
go play with the new shiny objects. What's the new one?
out of
Oh,
sight,
yeah.
out of mind, basically. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. They gave a token mention and that's about it. It's like, so when I get called in as a business architect and someone is banging around that, and I go, okay, they don't really understand business architecture if that's their source of truth. It's like,
right.
well, I don't want to poo poo it, but it's like, come on, guys, what do
Yeah.
you currently do today? How are you set up? How are you structured? Who's your customers? What's that journey like? Touch points? None of that stuff. Like,
Well, and the systems and standards, that's so important too, and the governance aspect of things. And I think in transformation projects, it's so important to have those governance aspects ground down early on. You can't wait till the last end, the last portion of a project to do that. And
mm,
I've definitely seen, actually myself in my early days made this mistake. So it's something you look back on and you learn from, but you realize at the time, to your point, governance is key and crucial.
yep.
Does go along with that adoption and kind of helping that adoption along. But and I think the governance too is kind of a wonky word. People tend to hear it and think, oh, well, what does that mean exactly? Like, is it governance of a process? Is it governance of a system, like you said, a standard? And it's all the above.
Mm,
And I think in terms of talking about those frameworks and not trying to pigeonhole people and or excuse me, not people, companies and organizations into these different methods of how to actually effectuate change. I mean, the the um the way you need to go about it with particular clients is going to um uh, really depend on the level of their complexity. There may be, like we were talking, the Proshi method or the TOGAF method. That's why I was
yeah.
asking them. That may be beneficial for like a certain aspect of the company, but maybe not the whole company,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
I think is a useful way to look at these different frameworks, and not that they're going to be used in their entirety necessarily for a whole company, but
Yeah.
maybe various levels of company.
Yeah. Part of it. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
it. I'll bring you back a little bit to where you said about early in your career. And I think
yeah,
everyone, and I think when we talk about what does, is the market changing for consultants, and what is that changing to? And I think that we're saying collectively, it's the value that it has is maybe that personal part. You talk empathy, leadership, understanding the context. And I think that's what we were probably not saying, but this is the theme: is education. You're educating the client, and I think when you say the early part of your career, like everyone is in the same boat, right? Starts about the same place, and so I've borrowed from the construction industry. They talk about in their hence business architecture is they go through their journey from a novice to apprentice to a journeyman to a master builder, and I say the same thing. As a consultant, you come out of university, you're learning straight from the book. You want to apply it like literally straight from the book, and don't understand the context. And the juniors, they pull out their book and they want to do things exactly by the book because they don't know yet. They're not learning that they can. They've got a whole suite of tools that they can apply, but they're applying them to the full degree, not understanding the context. So over time, they learn some more, and they learn, they can apply this one a little bit more and that one less, and then they get to, then they're moving up the knowledge spectrum. And so I think what as consultants we offer to clients is understanding that there's a process you're going to go through, and be wary. If you are told to use the book, then it's like you need to maybe assess or push back on. Don't always take the first advice or the one that's yelled at the loudest. Consider other things. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think for any young professional or people who are interested in getting involved in business transformation and change management, that's super important. It's like you have to consider context as king.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just for what we do. I think that's everything. Like if you can't run into a bar wearing a chicken outfit, like context, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can if you want, but there's context.
Yeah. They were really good at a stag do, but
you'd be good at a stag do. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I think the key part for the consultancies, their takeaway is the consultants is their understanding that the people element of the transformation, and a big part there is education, is educating your client. So you're, in summary, for your approach here, you follow as a framework of frameworks, maybe my words, putting words in your mouth there, that you probably even do exactly that. You're applying appropriately and proportionally for the context. Not be wedded to one particular method.
Agreed. Yeah, I was just going to agree with you. Yeah, exactly. I think the framework of frameworks will be kind of as you put it. I like that. I'm going to steal that as well because
knock yourself out.
that's exactly how I try to go about these projects. So
now good one. Now point number 3. Now having done this transformations, and we haven't talked about having now been in the UK and also Australia for about the same amount of time, of 15 years, we used to see a lot of American visitors in Australia, and you talk to them, or tourists, they'd ask you direction, and they'll say, the first time in the country, and don't travel outside the country, or they just got their passport, or they say, New Zealand, where's that? What is that? Is that like, can we go there now? They're like, is it walking distance? And I was like, I don't, why is it that maybe a lot of Americans then, and this is a few years ago now, hadn't traveled that much, but the country is so big, it is huge. There's 40 million people. This country here is big, but it's
you're talking about Australia?
America.
Okay.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Like, so for an American to have a holiday, having a holiday within their own country is quite, let's say, I don't want to say acceptable, but it's like valid. It's like the country is so big, so vast that different parts of the country, as you were saying before, Arizona, it's desert. And the other side, north, east, massive metropolis city, huge city. In the middle, Colorado, like the best skiing in the world. Like, man, the country's got everything like Europe's got in one whole country. But then Europe's like, how many, 50 odd countries.
The
So,
greatest country on earth, man. Here we go.
well, I might be there soon. So yeah, we'll stay in touch. Um,
Awesome. Yeah, let me know.
okay, so now having done this across the states and at the heart of where everything happened, where you are now in Washington,
Mhm.
and having started in government, if that's what you call then, and built a good, solid, strong career in consulting and government transformations. 20 odd years, 2 decades in the business. If you could do it all again, what would you do differently?
Man, I would say that's a good question. I got to think about that, dude. I think that in hindsight, I would say just be more flexible to change and opportunity when it comes your way. Um, and get to really get involved with your really like get in depth with your projects. And not to say that I didn't, but I think in some aspects of my career so far, there are times when I look back where I wish I had maybe learned a little bit more about the client, but I was pressed in another area, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Whether it be I'm stretched too thin or personal life things that got in the way or whatever it is, where maybe if I had done that little bit extra thing, it could have potentially helped the client that bit much more.
yeah.
Um,
Added
and that
value.
ultimately, yeah, and that ultimately reflects, in your career as well and helps you. So, I think it's just sometimes trying to be locked in and keep all the distractions outside is to the extent that you can.
Yeah,
And again, I think I've been good about that for the most part, but I do think as a young professional, and I assume that this is kind of what I would be speaking to the
yeah,
audience,
yeah,
but also older senior, senior, more mid-level or mid-level to senior level professional living is something to keep in mind is to, if you can really empathize, to use that word again, with your client as much as you can, I think it's going to not only drive their success, but it's going to drive your success. And so when I give an example, when I just finished my MBA last year from Duke, right? And that
yeah.
something,
Congrats, dude.
not to try to toot my
Yeah.
own horn, but
No,
yeah, thank
no,
you.
I'm gonna talk you up at
Um,
the end anyway. Go.
but, but one thing they really pushed, and I loved it about the program, and I loved it about the school and the professors and my cohort was this thing called decency quotient. So you've heard of emotional intelligence, right, in the
Yep.
workplace. The EQ, IQ, of course, is super important in employees. Adaptability, uh, the ability to learn and grow, and not just come in smart, but can you acquire new skills?
Mm.
Um, those are all super important, but decency quotient is really how do you do right by others? That's what it's talking about. And I
Ah.
think as a business professional, if you keep that in mind when you're working with clients or whether, or in our field, in transformation, we say clients, but in any kind of field that you're in, if you try to apply that aspect of doing decent by others and being decent to others, you're going to be successful. And I think you're going to enjoy your work more. So
More. Yep.
I think it's something to keep in mind.
Okay. So the 4 points, I agree there. I would have been guilty of that at various stages with the learn more about the client. Is that yeah? You come in, you've been given an objective to achieve, and so you focus on that. And if there was some other, if you stood back and took in some more of the business and context, you might get a better picture, add more value. I
Yeah.
understand that. Okay, that's around isolation and focus. It has a pro and con, I think when you talk about empathy, empathize is about win-win. Is that the more you help them, it's win-win for you. You add value, they see the value, and then
Right.
that reciprocates. And then yeah, I like that one. I've not heard of it before. The decency quota. Yeah,
Yeah, quota quotient. I think it's decency quotient is what they call it. I'm
quotient.
happy to send you more information on it.
Okay, champion. Yeah, do that.
Mm.
I'll quote you on it. Is to do good by others. To do good by others. I
Doing
like
good
that.
for
Yeah, I
others.
think that we could do in this world is definitely doing good by others. It doesn't. There's no harm in being polite. And I see people, but like if I'd spent some time in Moscow, and there, actually I met the guy who wrote the book, English guy who wrote the book, and the book is called "Why Russians Don't Smile." Yeah, the reason
That's
why is they see it as a weakness.
interesting.
Culturally, yeah, they see it as a weakness. And it's like being friendly, like that would be frowned upon because
Yeah.
there's
Well,
like,
and that's an interesting point. So going to the GCC question, like how decent are you going to be, right? Because some
mm,
cultures, to your point, it's you gotta understand that. Like if you're in that culture, like you can be as hopeful as you want. In the Western culture, you may try to be sorry, I'm losing my words
yeah,
here. You may think you're being helpful, but in that culture, you may
be
be doing the
offensive.
exact opposite. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So this is again coming to understanding the context, right?
Yep.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. My man. So, Jared, thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Well,
Absolutely.
I want to stay on after we wrap this one up. I want to have a quick chat with you. Um,
Sure.
it's been a while. We haven't connected for some time, but I don't want to lose this opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jared all the way through to all from Washington D.C. So this here will go up on different channels. I think 1 or 2 weeks, hopefully. So you'll see when I post it on LinkedIn. I'll tag you, and you're welcome to share it around. Anyone wants to get in touch with you, I'll put your contact details, your LinkedIn on in the show notes. If there's any white papers or any ebook or something that want to put a link to that others can download and see, oh, this is what you're about, then I'll put that there too so they can get hold of you. And that gets published all on the different podcast channels, Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. So those links will be active there, I think, indefinitely. So there you go.
Awesome, man. No, great chatting with you, Heath. And man, I'm glad we finally got this done.
Yeah.
It was good conversation, man. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on in this space, and I think it's exciting to be a transformation consultant because all the change happening. And it's like, you don't know what your day is going to look like sometimes, and
Yeah.
especially in your line of business, working with some of the more like C-suite type of stuff. So no, really appreciated being on. It was a great conversation, and I'll have
My
to do this
pleasure.
again sometime.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Okay. Thank you very much, my man. Okay. Stand by. Okay. Cheers. Bye.
See ya.